Ancient Egypt, renowned for its powerful pharaohs, pantheon of gods, and magnificent art, is often viewed as a civilization marked by enduring strength and prosperity. However, this perception overlooks the darker, more turbulent periods that challenged its very existence. While Egypt did experience times of immense wealth and grandeur, it also faced internal strife, including civil wars, famines, and a deep sense of impending catastrophe. These difficult times threatened the unity of the kingdom and required resilience, both from the people and their leaders, to ensure survival. One pharaoh who exemplifies this struggle is Sesostris III, who ruled Egypt nearly 4,000 years ago. Sesostris is often depicted as the ideal pharaoh, strong and muscular, yet his facial expressions tell a different story. His scowling features suggest a harsh, stern ruler who governed with an iron fist, reflecting the need for strong leadership during Egypt's troubled times. His large ears, a notable feature in his statues, are interpreted as symbolizing his ability to hear and suppress any plots against him, representing the growing paranoia and fear that characterized this era. During these periods of crisis, Egyptian monarchs like Sesostris III ruled not only through military power but also through fear and suspicion. Their authority was reinforced by magical beliefs and curses, which played an essential role in maintaining control. Egypt's rulers needed to navigate these crises carefully, balancing their divine status with the harsh realities of a civilization on the brink of collapse. This constant tension between power and instability highlights that Egypt's glorious past was not always as unshakable as it might seem, as the kingdom often teetered on the edge of disaster before emerging stronger. The image of Egyptian pharaohs ruling as absolute monarchs, with their immense power and divine status, is iconic. They were seen as gods on earth, responsible for maintaining order, justice, and harmony. However, the reality was far more complex. Behind the aura of omnipotence, pharaohs often faced significant internal and external challenges, and their rule was not as absolute as it might appear. They were not only the faces of the state, but also the linchpins of its stability, making the success of their reign dependent on their ability to maintain delicate political and social balances. Many pharaohs faced constant threats from rival factions within the kingdom, as well as from external enemies. Rebellions, coups, and assassination attempts were not uncommon, and despite their divine status, pharaohs needed to be both politically astute and militarily capable to retain their throne. They also had to navigate the influence of powerful noble families and priests, whose support was crucial for maintaining control over the vast Egyptian empire. Externally, Egypt's prosperity made a target for neighboring kingdoms. The pharaohs were tasked with defending the borders, leading military campaigns to protect Egypt's wealth and prestige. Pharaohs like Ramses II are remembered for their military achievements, which were vital in preserving Egypt's dominance in the region. Moreover, pharaohs were expected to act as intermediaries between the gods and the people, ensuring that the divine order was maintained. They were responsible for appeasing the gods to prevent natural disasters and ensure good harvests, further complicating their roles as both spiritual and political leaders. The pharaoh's rule, while seemingly absolute, was often fraught with challenges that required both strength and wisdom to overcome as they navigated the complexities of leadership in ancient Egypt. The end of Egypt's Old Kingdom, often referred to as the Pyramid Age, marked a significant turning point in the history of ancient Egypt. This period, which saw the construction of some of the most iconic and enduring monuments of human civilization, came to an abrupt end due to a complex mix of internal and external factors. Natural disasters, such as prolonged droughts and poor harvests, led to widespread famine, which severely weakened the kingdom's stability. These environmental challenges made it increasingly difficult for the pharaohs to maintain control over the vast resources and workforce necessary for monumental projects like the pyramids. In addition to the environmental crises, Egypt faced growing social unrest. The central government, once a strong and unifying force under the leadership of powerful pharaohs, began to lose its grip on the provinces. Regional governors, known as nomarchs, became more independent and assertive, often refusing to send resources or manpower to support the central government. This decentralization of power further eroded the authority of the pharaoh, making it difficult to maintain order and unity across the kingdom. Leadership during this time was also notably weak. Successive rulers failed to effectively address the mounting crises, and their inability to provide strong governance compounded the kingdom's troubles. Famine spread across the land, leading to desperate conditions where some historical accounts suggest that cannibalism occurred. The once great kingdom of Egypt found itself in disarray, and the grand pyramid-building projects came to a halt. The collapse of the Old Kingdom, often referred to as the First Intermediate Period, marked the end of an era. Egypt fell into chaos, with competing factions vying for power, leaving behind a legacy of grandeur and a cautionary tale of the dangers of weak leadership, natural disasters, and social upheaval. The reign of Pharaoh Pepi II, one of the longest in ancient Egyptian history, is often considered a pivotal period that contributed to the decline of Egypt's Old Kingdom. Pepi II, who ascended the throne as a young child and ruled for over 90 years, witnessed the gradual weakening of the central authority that had once unified Egypt under a single, powerful leadership. Though his reign began during a time of prosperity, the later years saw the unraveling of the political and social fabric that held the kingdom together. One of the key challenges during Pepi II's reign was the increasing power of regional governors, known as nomarchs. As the pharaoh aged and his ability to govern effectively diminished, the nomarchs began to assert more control over their territories. This shift in power created a decentralized political structure where local leaders acted more independently, often ignoring the authority of the central government. The result was a fragmented kingdom where the influence of the pharaoh was no longer absolute, and local leaders wielded significant power over their regions. Pepi II's extended reign also coincided with a series of environmental and economic challenges. Prolonged periods of drought and failed harvests led to widespread famine, further straining the kingdom's resources. The inability of the central government to provide relief or effectively manage these crises contributed to social unrest, as the people grew increasingly dissatisfied with the leadership. The long reign of Pepi II, coupled with these growing problems, left Egypt vulnerable to internal strife and external threats. By the end of Pepi II's reign, Egypt was in a state of political disintegration, setting the stage for the First Intermediate Period. The central authority weakened, the once great pyramid-building project ceased, and the kingdom entered a period of instability and chaos that would take generations to recover from. The First Intermediate Period in Egypt's history was a time of considerable chaos and fragmentation that followed the collapse of the Old Kingdom. After the long reign of Pharaoh Pepi II, the centralized authority of the pharaoh weakened significantly, leading to a period of political disintegration. The once powerful rulers of Egypt could no longer maintain control over the vast territories of the kingdom, and local leaders, or nomarchs, began to rise in prominence. These regional governors governed their areas independently, often acting as kings in their own right. This division of power created internal conflicts and struggles for dominance across Egypt. The country was divided between two major power centers, Heracleopolis in Lower Egypt and Thebes in Upper Egypt. Rival dynasties emerged from these regions, each vying for control over the rest of the country. The rulers of Heracleopolis governed the north, while the kings of Thebes gained influence over the southern territories. This period saw frequent skirmishes and battles between these competing factions, further destabilizing the nation. Additionally, the social order broke down as economic difficulties and food shortages, caused by natural disasters like droughts, worsened the already precarious situation. Despite this turmoil, the First Intermediate Period was not entirely a time of decline. It was also an era of significant cultural development. The breakdown of central authority allowed for greater artistic expression and the flourishing of regional art and literature. The decentralization of power gave local communities more autonomy, which contributed to a diversification of cultural practices. In Thebes, for example, a new style of funerary texts emerged, which would later evolve into the famous coffin texts. The First Intermediate Period lasted for about 150 years, eventually ending when the Theban rulers, led by Mentuhotep II, reunited Egypt and established the Middle Kingdom. ushering in a new era of stability and prosperity. The Middle Kingdom of Egypt, circa 2050 to 1800 BC, marked a significant period of resurgence after the political turmoil and fragmentation of the First Intermediate Period. During this era, Egypt experienced a revival of its centralized government, culture, and economy, with strong leadership that aimed to restore the nation to its former glory. The reunification of Egypt was achieved by Mentuhotep II, the Theban king who conquered the northern regions and re-established a stable rule over the entire land. His victory brought about a new age of prosperity and growth, with Thebes becoming the political and cultural center of the nation. One of the key features of the Middle Kingdom was the strengthening of pharaonic authority. The rulers of this period focused on consolidating their power by creating a more efficient administrative system. They appointed loyal officials to oversee various regions of the country, ensuring that the central government maintained control over all aspects of society. This period also saw significant territorial expansion, with the pharaohs conducting military campaigns to extend Egypt's influence into Nubia to the south and into parts of the Levant to the northeast. These campaigns secured valuable resources, such as gold, which helped boost Egypt's wealth. Culturally, the Middle Kingdom was a time of intellectual and artistic flourishing. Literature from this period, such as the Tale of Sinew and the Instructions of Amenemhat, reflected the values of the time, emphasizing loyalty to the pharaoh and the importance of order and justice. Art and architecture also saw advancements, with new styles emerging in sculpture and building design. While the grand pyramid constructions of the Old Kingdom were no longer common, impressive monuments and temples were built, particularly in Thebes and Abydos. The Middle Kingdom also witnessed social changes, including a greater emphasis on the afterlife for the common people. The practice of creating coffin texts, which provided spiritual guidance for the deceased, became widespread. This democratization of funerary practices allowed more Egyptians to participate in rituals that were once reserved for royalty. Despite some challenges, the Middle Kingdom ultimately established itself as a golden age in Egyptian history, setting the stage for future developments in the New Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom of Egypt, circa 2050 to 1800 BCE, was a period of renewal following the instability of the First Intermediate Period. It marked a time of political, economic, and cultural resurgence. The reunification of Egypt was achieved under Mentuhotep II, a Theban king who successfully brought the northern and southern regions back under central control. This victory set the foundation for a new era of stability and prosperity, with Thebes emerging as the capital and cultural hub of the nation. During this time, the power of the pharaoh was strengthened and the government became more efficient through reforms in the administrative system. Officials were appointed to oversee different regions, ensuring centralized control over all aspects of society. The Middle Kingdom also saw territorial expansion, with military campaigns extending Egyptian influence into Nubia to the south and parts of the Levant to the northeast, securing valuable resources that contributed to the nation's wealth. Culturally, the Middle Kingdom was a golden age of literature, art, and architecture. Literary works such as the Tale of Sinew and the Instructions of Amenemhat became emblematic of the period's values, emphasizing loyalty to the pharaoh and the importance of justice. While pyramid construction was no longer the norm, impressive monuments and temples were built, particularly in Thebes. In addition, funerary practices expanded to include the common people. The coffin texts, providing spiritual guidance for the afterlife, became widely used, allowing ordinary Egyptians access to rituals once reserved for royalty. The Middle Kingdom thus established itself as a period of prosperity, stability, and cultural advancement, laying the groundwork for Egypt's future development. The New Kingdom of Egypt, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, was a period of imperial expansion, immense wealth, and cultural flourishing, often regarded as Egypt's Golden Age. This era began after the expulsion of the Hyksos, a foreign people who had ruled the Nile Delta for nearly a century, by Ahmose I, the founder of the 18th dynasty. Ahmose's victory reunited Egypt and laid the foundation for an era of unprecedented military, political, and economic power. During the New Kingdom, Egypt reached its territorial zenith, extending its influence far beyond its borders. Pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramses II led successful military campaigns into the Levant and Nubia, securing Egypt's dominance in the ancient world. These conquests brought vast wealth and resources into the kingdom, allowing for the construction of magnificent temples and monuments, including the massive complexes at Karnak and Luxor, as well as the iconic rock-cut temples of Abu Simbel. The New Kingdom also witnessed a cultural renaissance, with advancements in art, literature, and religious practices. The period saw the rise of the god Ammonius as the central deity of Egypt, and grand temples were built in his honor. Pharaohs were viewed as both divine rulers and warrior kings, with an increased focus on their role as mediators between the gods and the people. One of the most notable figures of this era was Pharaoh Akhenaten, who attempted to revolutionize Egypt's religion by promoting the worship of a single god, Aten. Although his religious reforms were short-lived, they marked a significant shift in Egyptian history. In addition, the New Kingdom was characterized by the construction of the Valley of the Kings, a royal burial site for pharaohs and nobles, signaling the height of Egypt's architectural achievements. The reign of Akhenaten, 1353 to 1336 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom is one of the most controversial and fascinating periods in the nation's history. Akhenaten, originally named Amenhotep IV, ascended the throne and almost immediately began an unprecedented religious revolution. He rejected the traditional polytheistic worship of Egypt's gods, particularly the powerful state god Ammonius, and instead introduced a form of monotheism, focusing worship on Aten, the sun disk. Akhenaten's religious reform was radical. Aten was elevated above all other gods, and Akhenaten proclaimed himself as the sole intermediary between Aten and the people. This shift not only impacted religious practices, but also art and culture. The traditional representations of the pharaoh, rigid and idealized, were replaced with more naturalistic and unconventional depictions of Akhenaten. These images showed him with elongated limbs, a prominent belly, and an overall androgynous appearance, breaking from centuries of artistic norms. In conjunction with his religious transformation, Akhenaten moved Egypt's capital from Thebes to a new city called Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna. This city was built as the physical and spiritual center of his new religion, filled with open-air temples dedicated to Aten. The construction of Akhetaten symbolized the break with the old religious order and demonstrated Akhenaten's commitment to his revolutionary ideology. However, Akhenaten's reforms were not popular with many Egyptians, particularly the powerful priests of Ammonius and other traditional deities, who lost much of their influence and wealth. Upon Akhenaten's death, his successors, including the famous boy king Tutankhamun, quickly reversed his policies. The capital returned to Thebes, the old gods were reinstated, and Atenism was abandoned. Akhenaten's reign, though short-lived, left a lasting impact on Egyptian history and remains a subject of scholarly debate, representing one of the earliest known attempts at monotheism. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter remains one of the most significant and celebrated finds in the history of archaeology. Tutankhamun, often referred to as the Boy King, ruled Egypt from 1332 to 1323 BCE during the 18th dynasty. Despite his short reign and relatively minor impact on Egypt's history, the discovery of his nearly intact tomb brought him lasting fame. What made this discovery so remarkable was the state of preservation and the sheer wealth of treasures found within the tomb. Unlike many other royal tombs that had been looted over the centuries, Tutankhamun's burial site remained largely undisturbed. Inside, Carter and his team uncovered over 5,000 artifacts, including golden chariots, jewelry, furniture, and most famously, the solid gold funerary mask that covered the young pharaoh's mummified face. This mask, with its striking inlaid eyes and regal features, has since become an iconic symbol of ancient Egypt. The tomb's discovery provided invaluable insights into the burial practices, artistry, and wealth of Egypt's New Kingdom period. It also fueled a renewed global fascination with Egyptology and ancient Egyptian culture. However, the discovery also sparked rumors of a curse when several people associated with the excavation died under mysterious circumstances. Though this was later dismissed as superstition, it added an element of intrigue to the story of Tutankhamun. Although Tutankhamun himself was a relatively obscure ruler, the treasures of his tomb have immortalized his name, and the discovery continues to captivate the world's imagination to this day. The artifacts from his tomb are now among the most well-known and visited in museums worldwide. The reign of Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great, marked one of the most extraordinary and prosperous periods in ancient Egyptian history. Ruling for 66 years, from 1279 to 1213 BCE, during the 19th dynasty, Ramses II is remembered for his military prowess, monumental architectural achievements, and efforts to maintain peace and stability in the region. His reign solidified Egypt's status as a superpower of the ancient world. Ramses II's military campaigns, particularly against the Hittites, Libyans, and Nubians, were crucial in expanding and protecting Egypt's borders. His most famous battle, the Battle of Kadesh, fought against the Hittite Empire in 1274 BCE, is considered one of the largest chariot battles in history. Though the battle ended in a stalemate, Ramses II famously portrayed it as a great victory in numerous inscriptions across Egypt, highlighting his personal bravery and leadership. Eventually, he negotiated the world's first recorded peace treaty with the Hittites, ensuring stability for both empires. Beyond his military achievements, Ramses II is perhaps best known for his monumental building projects. He embarked on an ambitious campaign of construction, commissioning numerous temples, statues, and obelisks that still stand today. The most famous of these is the colossal Abu Simbel, a temple complex in southern Egypt that features 4 massive statues of Ramses II seated on his throne. This architectural marvel was designed to display his power and divine status, while also impressing Egypt's southern neighbors. Ramses II's reign was a time of relative peace and prosperity, and his efforts to promote trade and diplomatic relations helped Egypt flourish. His legacy as one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs endures not only through his military and architectural achievements, but also through the stability and wealth his long reign brought to the kingdom. Today, he remains a symbol of ancient Egypt's might and grandeur.